This is question 49 from section B of the 2018 PBSAA paper.
In this question, we're told about an experiment looking into the rate of oxygen bubble release from pondweed plants at various temperatures. We're told that in the investigation at various temperatures all factors were kept constant, and we produced this graph with two labelled sections X and Y. So we can see that the rate of oxygen bubble release in bubbles per minute increases and then plateaus at higher temperatures. So based on that, we're asked which of the following statements are correct. So here are our statements. Before we get into them, let's quickly remind ourselves of why oxygen is being released at all. Well, it's because oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. So this experiment is essentially an indirect measure of photosynthesis, which is of course the generation of glucose and oxygen from carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so the first statement. In section X, that's the first section here, the kinetic energy of the molecules is increasing with increasing temperature. Now we can say this to be true because the basic principle of increasing temperature is that it increases the kinetic energy of the reactant molecules, making it more likely that they will collide and combine, and energy more than the activation energy required for the reaction to progress. Moving on to statement 2, in section Y, so that's the plateau section, the temperature is the factor limiting the rate of oxygen production. Now by definition we know this to be false because the temperature is increasing and yet the rate of oxygen bubble release is not increasing. Therefore, temperature isn't limiting the increase in the rate of oxygen release, it must be some other factor. The third statement is that in section Y, the plateau section, the plant's enzymes may have denatured. Now the denaturing refers to the changes to the three-dimensional structure of a protein that can occur when the temperature is too high, because that causes the bonds within the protein to break down. And that obviously has an impact on the rate of reaction because the enzymes are no longer functional. But if we look at our graph, there's no evidence that there's denaturing because the rate has not decreased. If some of the enzymes had denatured, then the rate would not be as high as it was earlier on. So no, there's no evidence of denaturing. And finally, we're told that section Y represents the plant's maximum possible rate under any conditions. So the maximum possible rate of oxygen release under any conditions. So the operative word is under any conditions. We're not told about all the conditions that could affect the rate of bubble production, i.e. the rate of photosynthesis. Because of course there are other factors like the intensity of light, because photosynthesis is a light-dependent reaction, and the concentration of CO2, which is another one of the reactants. If these were higher, perhaps we would end up with a higher level for our rate. So we could say that this is wrong because we're not told about all the conditions that may affect photosynthesis. So our answer is that only statement 1 is correct, and our answer is option A.